One of my favorite things about doing this podcast is every once in a while, a longtime friend agrees to be a guest, and today's show is one of those days. I've known Timothy Hogan for roughly 11 years, and I feel the level of comfort in recording this episode is abundantly clear. Tim is an incredibly talented photographer, woodworker, and one of my favorite people to surf with, though it doesn't happen nearly as often as I'd like. We discuss his journey from growing up in Connecticut, where he failed as a middle school saxophone player, to leading the charge to relocate to California and convincing several friends to do the same, mainly in the name of surfing. As a result, there's some surf chat, and it's certainly safe to say there's a good amount of nerdy photography chat, as well as some good car talk, Volkswagen vans specifically. We wrap up the episode discussing Tim's parents, including his mom, who does CrossFit. It's always great to spend some time with Tim, and I'm stoked to share a glimpse into his life and our friendship, so I hope you enjoy it. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard Age Podcast. So we were talking about breakfast a moment ago, and you had chicken, some version of bread that your mother makes.
Yeah, with like eggs and almond flour and flaxseed and
That's an intense bread.
it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what was the other thing?
Sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut.
Love me some sauerkraut.
I think sauerkraut, I think hot dogs. Or sausages, rather.
Yeah, you would be right. You would be right.
But chicken?
Yeah, just
Is
just
that
like
German?
I don't know. I think it's just
Haphazard is what it sounds like.
yeah, kind of. But so somehow it sounds really, really weird. But like together, it's all really good.
Cool.
Yeah,
I love it. Timothy Hogan, welcome to the Standard Age Podcast.
happy to be doing this. This is my first, so
Well,
give me a little bit of slack.
hey, well, you got all the slack you need, man. You have graciously hosted me the last several days here in Ojai, California, which is, for those who don't know, it's between sort of Ventura and Santa Barbara, but inland, 20 minutes.
Yeah, about 20 minutes up the hill. Yeah.
Gorgeous, gorgeous country. I took an amazing drive yesterday up 33.
That road is magical.
Yeah, I'll be sharing those photos via Instagram probably for weeks, if not months. I took 100 photos. So we're sitting out here on your patio, drinking beer. The sun is setting. I'm fairly certain people can probably hear the aviary behind us, which is literally just your trees. It's not really an aviary.
Yeah, it's the oak tree aviary. It's not bad though, right?
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than this. You grew up in Connecticut.
I did.
What part of Connecticut?
A small town called Ellington, so kind of northeastern part of the state. I say small, like 10,000 people or so.
Oh, wow. So the town I grew up in was 10,000 when I was born,
Yeah.
and now it's like 180,000 people.
Jeez. Yeah, I know Ellington's grown. I don't think that much. It's probably 20 maybe. But it's funny moving from a small town, going to New York City, going to Santa Monica, and then ending up in a smaller town than where you grew up.
Well, I was going to say, how many people live here?
There's 8,000 in like Ojai proper, somewhere about that. And I only know that from the sign on the way in. It's not large.
I went for a bike ride this afternoon, and it was just, I mean, yes, there were cars, but in and out of these neighborhoods, hardly anybody.
Yeah, the neighborhoods are really quiet. There's so many streets that I have not even been down. The main drag there, Ojai Avenue, is a thoroughfare, to say the least. That's really busy.
How many years were you in Santa Monica prior to this?
5 or 6?
Okay. What made you come here specifically?
I think, like everybody, when I decided I wanted to get out of Santa Monica because it was just too busy.
Mm-hmm.
After, speaking of busy, living in New York, went to Santa Monica. It obviously seems a lot slower. And then at some point in Santa Monica, I lived on Hill Street, right off of Lincoln. And at some point, it was like, oh my God, this is chaotic. And you don't really, the chaos kind of sneaks up on you. You don't really realize how busy it is. And then at one point I was like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. and I had spent a summer in Maine, in Mid-Coast Maine, in 2015.
Okay.
I went to woodworking school there,
That's right.
and I had barn envy. So all these beautiful homes in Maine, I swear half of them had barns. That's probably an exaggeration, but it seemed like that to me. Loved that kind of like quiet type thing, and realized that Santa Monica was too busy. And then, like everybody in Santa Monica, I was like, well, I'm going to move to Topanga.
So when I was driving up here a couple days ago, Topanga immediately sprung to mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're going up that windy mountain road, and it kind of has some of those same vibes. But I was looking in Topanga, and I knew I wanted some more space. I love space. I love being able to see out to infinity, so seeing the mountains here and all that kind of stuff was, I love a view. And a lot of the places in Topanga were really small, really just compact, and some of them had views and whatever, but it just wasn't working. And so I started kind of like expanding my scope and where I was looking, and then also I was like, oh, is it Ventura? But again, there wasn't the space there thing. And then Ojai, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I'd been up here once or twice, but I didn't really know it. I knew like people loved it, and I wasn't really like, and to be honest, I didn't really love it when I started looking. It just was this kind of like, it's close enough to LA for the business. It's close enough to the ocean. It's removed enough, and it's a little bit more space.
Right.
So it was like a little Venn diagram of like characteristics, and Ojai was kind of like in the middle.
Right. We'll get into some of that. So let's back up just for a second, though. Who was Tim in high school?
Oh, damn. Bit of a dork. A bit of a band dork, actually. I played tenor saxophone in high school.
No kidding. Sax.
Yeah. I was awful at it. I never practiced. I just wanted to go on the trips. We had a really good band.
I know it was clarinet, but I just think of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where he's like playing. He goes, "Never had one lesson."
Yes.
Like,
yeah,
that's immediately what I saw when you said I never practiced.
It was abysmal. I was so bad, and I never practiced. So in middle school, when I started playing saxophone, I had a loaner saxophone from the school. I sucked at it. It was awful.
Okay, so you were practicing,
Yeah.
or lack thereof,
Yeah.
saxophone.
Yep.
But were you into jazz or anything? Like, why saxophone?
I have absolutely zero idea.
Well, interesting. So what was like the kind of music you were into then those years?
I think everybody goes through a musical arc as they kind of find their way. I think the first tape I ever bought, previous to buying tapes, I think was recording tapes that I got from the library by holding a microphone up to the speaker of my parents' stereo, and like getting all the background noise and being like, "Mom, shut up, I'm recording."
No kidding.
Yeah, it was a horrible bootlegger.
So I mean, most people would do like the tape deck thing.
We didn't have that. We had a record player and a tape deck.
Right.
Yeah. I was not very good at bootlegging, apparently. And so other than like Weird Al Yankovic and stuff like that you like when you're young, I think the first tape I ever had was Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms.
Money for Nothing?
Right.
Yeah.
I still love it to this day.
Mark Knopfler.
And then I got Paul Simon Graceland from an aunt for Christmas.
So you had kind of mature taste at an early age.
And then I remember bringing home from a friend of mine, I brought home Misfits.
Okay, now we're
Sex
talking.
Pistols.
Yep.
And Violent Femmes.
Yes.
And don't think my folks were too stoked with that assortment of...
The Violent Femmes. I just remember being in 5th grade, and my friends had older siblings the same way I did.
Ah, okay.
So you'd always get like your inappropriate music from your older siblings.
Yes, right? I got it from my friends. Yep.
So like Violent Femmes came through my buddy Mike Wagner's older brother. I was listening to like, Motley Crue, and which wasn't like inappropriate, but
just
it was
bad.
It was certainly above my like 6-year-old status.
Oh, this is at 6 years old?
Yeah, when I was like 6, I was listening to like Poison and Motley Crue, the Beastie Boys album came out. License to Ill.
Yeah. Oh my God, I've got memories.
But it was
of
all
that.
because I had a brother 4 years older than I was.
Well, yeah.
So he was 10, which still is kind of teetering on inappropriate.
Yep. Motley Crue at 6.
Yeah. I think
you didn't turn into a degenerate. It's amazing.
Well, depends who you ask. Yeah. So those were high school years. Where did you go to undergrad?
I went to Syracuse.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I did photography, and then I did a minor in marketing at Syracuse, which was...
Oh, that's a killer combo, though.
It was good. It was a good... I loved college up there. It was really fun. I got to focus on photography. I got to just dive in head first. Teachers were just kind of like, just go do your thing. It was great.
So is that when you picked up a camera for the first time, or were you always dabbling as a younger kid?
I had exposure, pun intended, to it. I think in middle school was the first time. We had a darkroom in middle school. And my next door neighbor across the street, Adam, he was into developing film and stuff, but I wasn't really into it. I think I had a Kodak Instamatic or something like that.
Did you ever do like the pinhole camera in school?
We did. We had a program when I was in elementary school. We did the pinhole camera and the camera obscura, where they did the pin in the wall and it would do the
upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that would have been my first exposure to it, to use that word again.
Right. But what was your first camera? The Instamatic, though.
Yeah, I think I had a little 126 Instamatic thing at some point. Couldn't tell you where those pictures are, although that would be kind of fun. They were probably shit, but...
So I didn't know... Well, actually, my buddy Steven majored, I think, in photography. For you, what is that experience? Do they give you cameras? Do you have to come with your camera? Like, instead of buying books, you buy a camera? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, we had to come with one. I think I bought a Nikon 8008 or something like that.
Okay.
Obviously back in the film days, because I'm old now. And I think earlier than that, I had my dad's old Canon AE1.
I have the same camera still.
Really?
Yeah.
That got stolen when we were snowboarding one day. That was a bummer.
Oh, man.
So you had to go with a camera that had manual modes and whatever, which is great. And they had equipment, but it was Syracuse was a funny place. They had this great studio space, a ton of outdated equipment, even for the day.
Right.
Like old Speedotron packs and all this old stuff. And you could borrow a Nikon lens, but it was an old one. And they had a couple of really, really good pieces of equipment, but they wouldn't let anybody use them.
Right. Of course.
They had this studio space. They probably had this, it was big. It was probably a couple thousand square feet with 3 or 4 bays. And I kind of weaseled my way into getting more access than I had as an undergrad. I wasn't even supposed to have access, and I kind of got my way and was just experiment and just work for hours in there.
So were you shooting different speeds of film at that time, or were you just screw it, I'm just shooting 400 the whole time? What was
it was all over the place. Back in the day, I think they obviously started you out in black and white. We did very little color stuff.
Why is that, you think?
Because you could process it yourself and you could do the prints yourself, and you got into color later, which I think was really good. I think it's a shame that they don't, that's not part of it these days.
Right.
Getting rid of dark rooms and putting in computers instead, and I don't think you learn the same way.
Yeah, I feel like the learning process of photography is I don't know, wakeboarding or snowboarding, where learn how to do a 180 first,
right,
and then a switch 180, switch backside 180. Learn the basics. Right, yeah. And then do the 360, then do the rodeo flip, then you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas now you're just handed the rodeo flip,
and I think you're handed it without any. There's no consequence to screwing it up right now.
Right, you're handed a rodeo flip with a perfect landing every time.
Go for it. You're like, oh, that's beautiful,
Yeah.
which is great. But I think there's a learning, especially I remember printing color in the darkroom, which they didn't teach much color, so you had to just learn yourself. And you would go and you would be in the darkroom, and we'd have these little Kodak filters that you'd put over your eye to see the correction that you'd had to make. And if the print was too magenta, everything was the opposite. And you had to do all these tests, and every test you were doing cost money.
Right.
Right. And it cost time. And so you were forced to
get good,
and you were forced to really understand color, and you were really understand now. I mean, even to this day, I can spot, the subtlest color difference in something because of the hours, and it's just the time factor spent staring at prints in the darkroom.
Right.
That today you're on a computer and you just hit auto color or whatever. And I'm not saying today is worse. It's just different.
It's just different.
There's a different knowledge that's ingrained in you by not doing it the manual way.
Yeah. So when you minor in marketing, you said minor, or was it double major?
It was a minor. Yeah.
Minor. Okay.
Yeah.
So clearly there's no like on purpose overlap with photography. It's a different kind of scholastic segment altogether. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I knew it was commercial photography. So I went to school at, there was a couple programs at Syracuse. There was in the art school, but I went to the communication school.
Oh, I see.
At SI Newhouse. So it was much more around, we had photography, but then you also had to do communications law and PR and writing. And so it kind of fit more in with the marketing side of things. It wasn't an artistic endeavor.
Nice. So what was the first gig out of college?
I went to New York. I assisted for like about a year.
Okay.
Which is
studio type stuff?
Yeah, just different photographers. I actually started off assisting when I was still in college. I worked at a camera store in East Hartford, Connecticut called Simon's Photographic.
Cool.
And Mike Simons was, I almost hope he hears this. He was probably the best thing that ever happened to my career.
Why?
I was looking for a summer job, and I literally going through the yellow pages and called one, photo store in town, and no, we don't have anything. And I called Simons, and this woman Anita, who was working there, answered the phone. She's like, hey, whatever, I'm looking for a job. She's like, we were just talking about that. Why don't you come on in?
Like they were just talking.
about
needing to hire somebody. Right,
yeah.
Right.
And I went in, and it was kind of like the pro shop in town. So all of the pro photographers in, Connecticut, which was a lot of, corporate industrial insurance, corporate headshots, going to Pratt & Whitney and shooting jet engines and stuff like that. And so all the photographers in town were there, and they would come in and buy their films. So I met all the guys, and Mike had a small studio next door that I could use, and he had this small rental gear area, and I had access to all the cameras.
Sweet.
So I was like a kid in a candy store, right? So I just spent all my wages on film.
Yeah.
And I went next door and shot the film, and then assisted the photographers who were coming in. So we did headshots, and we did literally, jet engines at Pratt & Whitney, and worked for a bunch of those guys. And then my junior year in college, I assisted a guy, Jeff Licata, in New York. That was my first summer in New York. I was between junior and senior year. And he was a fashion photographer, really, really good, really precise, really knew his shit.
Was he doing more editorial type stuff, or was he doing more like shows, like runway?
It was editorial and catalog fashion, basically. And he was an incredibly talented photographer.
So you have a lot of exposure with like still life, as it were.
Yeah.
Still images.
Yeah.
Have you ever shot action type stuff?
Yeah, definitely. We're getting into it even more now. I just did a commercial for Callaway Golf, with a motion control robot, which was just absolutely amazing.
What does that mean? Speaking of rodeo flips,
Speaking of rodeo, yeah, it's kind of like the rodeo flip so it is a 6 or 8 axis robot that holds a video camera. Was
okay.
shot on a
So it's like a crazy gimbal.
It's a crazy gimbal. There you go. It's picture one of those robots that they use in car manufacturing.
Sure. Oh, right. With like the
arm.
arm.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. It can
but
articulate.
with a camera attached to it.
No kidding.
And so it allows us to do really precise, repeatable moves that you would never ever be able to do by hand. We were shooting this line of putters for Callaway Golf, and it was. I'd always wanted to use, like I knew it was there, I knew it existed, but we had never done a spot, and so we got called on to do this. I was like, oh, this would be amazing in motion control.
How long have those things been around?
They've been around for.
It's got to be a fairly recent development, right?
Let's say 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
The really, ambitious ones. And I think they're, like everything, they're coming down in price, and by down in price, I mean, I think this thing's about $150,000. But great guys at the studio called Ms. Robot they're in downtown. And they've got this amazing robot and this track. And it was a really, really cool experience. And it's the first time shooting motion that I was like, oh, I get this.
So you shot that downtown LA.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's back up just for a quick sec.
Yeah.
So you're assisting. When did you kind of strike out on your own, or like what was that like? If you want to skip through it, that's fine.
Yeah, no, it's cool. No, I think it was a funny story because I was in New York about a year, and I was working freelance for a bunch of photographers, and I was assisting a photographer, Elon Rubin, who's a fantastic still life photographer. I don't know how I met Elon, but anyways, was freelancing there. He was a incredible photographer and gave us a lot of, as assistants, we had, very strict, things we had to follow. The standards of quality were really high. It was back in the film days. So
like, give me an example of like what that would be like. Like what are the rules to play by?
We were, you're trying to be, or you are being creative, but you're being precise at the same time. So we were shooting, back in the day, we were doing everything on 4x5 and 8x10 inch film mostly.
Wow.
So each time you hit the shutter on 4x5, it was a $20 commitment. Each time you hit the shutter on a 8x10 inch piece of film was a $40 or $50 commitment.
No kidding. So
you had to get it right.
Well, I mean, as somebody who, teeters on the line of OCD, like,
Yeah.
I can certainly appreciate that mentality. Mm-hmm. But when you're dealing with, you guys were kind of in controlled environments, though, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it was a lot of still life and some beauty.
Because, like, if you're shooting nature shots or, like, landscapes, like...
You can still do it. Like, I would...
but, like, $40 a clip and the light's not right, like, you're screwed.
You have to get the light right.
Yeah.
We did... I worked with another photographer, Chris... His last name will come to me. And we would shoot 8x10 on location. I remember doing a Thanksgiving Martha Stewart shoot. Oh, the fact that I can't remember his last name, he was also super talented. But yeah, that was all 8x10 on location. Nature, people, whatever. Entirely different workflow and whatever.
Right.
But with Elon, we would... you would shoot, so it's sheets of film. It's not a roll. And we would shoot with different color filtrations over the lens. Like, when I say precise, you would shoot with no filter, and then you would shoot with maybe a little bit of a cyan filter and maybe a little bit of a magenta filter. And it was based on the emulsion of the film, like the lot of film that you had and you tested with the lab. And it was like, we're talking tiny little differences.
Borderline unpredictable, too, yeah?
We would do so much testing to make it as predictable as we could. We would use the same lab that we trusted. We would use the same batch of film. You'd buy cases of film of the same lot, and then you'd get the color filtration that worked with that film. And then you would shoot exposure brackets up and down, and then you would place all of the four correct, perfectly exposed pieces of film in a binder, and that would go to the client. Like, the level of The level of precision that you had to have to be a professional at that time was mind-boggling.
Well, isn't like a hip thing to do now is to like buy like the oldest film you can find?
Yeah.
And like, ooh, this might be
have
expired.
It be all fucked up and,
like,
and weird and cool colors. Yeah, but this was the opposite. This was like,
yeah, no, exactly.
This was like you were being highly paid, working for, top brands, and they were paying, especially in that day, a dump load of money.
Right.
And the expectation of quality and precision and all that kind of stuff like trickled down. So like Elon was being held to a really high level. So us assistants were being held to a really high level as well.
So what brought you to LA from New York then? Because you could have easily stayed in New York, right?
Easily stayed in New York as I was just, oh man.
Rat race.
I worked my ass off. I mean, what is it? 5, maybe 6 o'clock now? 6 o'clock in
currently?
New York.
Yes.
Right?
6 o'clock. 6:30.
6:30 in New York, I was just getting started. It was every day until 10, 11 at night, especially when I had my own place. Like, for a workaholic, New York is a bad place to be.
Well, I feel like, and who was I talking to recently? I was just having a conversation with somebody recently about how it's almost like a competition of like who can work the latest and who can work and oh, well, it's a weekend, so of course I got some work I got to tie up.
Right.
There is no semblance of work-life balance.
No, but that's what you were there to do.
Right.
You don't go to New York for work-life balance.
Right.
You go to New York to do your thing. And I'm really happy that I did that at that time.
Yeah.
Worked my butt off, learned a lot. And then I think at some point in New York, you wake up one day and you go, wait, why am I doing this?
If you haven't heard episode 1 of the Standard Age podcast, then let me tell you about my friend Tim Jackson. As owner of Passion Fine Jewelry, Tim and his team specialize in fine jewelry as well as some of the finest independent watch brands available. I'm talking about Groenfeld, Habring, Kudoki, Roger Smith, Roman Gauthier, Sarpaneva, the list goes on. The staff at Passion Fine Jewelry is literally made up of friends and family, so you will feel right at home if and when you visit. If California is out of reach, you can absolutely email or call the shop and they'll get you sorted. Visit passionfinejewelry.com for more information. As you all know, I'm a huge fan of using the right product for the right job. And like many of you, I appreciate products with a story. That's why I drive a Volkswagen GTI. It's a hot hatch with heritage. It's also why I'm into specific watches like my Tudor Black Bay. And that's exactly why I'm a fan of the indie accessory brand Cantonment. Cantonment makes a utilitarian cloth they simply call a kerchief. It's smaller than a standard bandana, but larger than a handkerchief, which makes it ideal to tuck in a back pocket or use as a neckerchief. I always take one on a bike ride or have one with me as a backup face covering. Not only do these kerchiefs satisfy several functions, but they look great too. Each set features illustrations celebrating icons of product design like the Omega Speedmaster, the Fender Stratocaster, or my favorite of course, a classic GTI. Follow them on Instagram at Cantonment Co. That's CantonmentCo, or visit them at cantonment.co. And use the code STANDARDH in all caps, no spaces, for 20% off of absolutely everything in their online shop. Now let's get back to the show. Well, let's fast forward just for a quick second because you're a surfer.
Yeah.
So how much of that, so you started surfing at what age?
I was in high school.
Okay. So at this point, you're what age in New York? Mid-20s, up late 20s?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
In your late 20s, you'd already been surfing for, call it 12, 15 years.
I still sucked though, but yeah.
That is not true. And I will say that on the record. I really enjoy surfing with you. I enjoy watching you surf because you also ride longboards.
Yeah, mostly longboards.
And I can't ride a longboard to save my life. Like I had to sell my longboard. I was
Really?
awful. I was like, either this takes too much trying and practice, which back to your saxophone days, not going to do it.
That's how I feel about shortboarding.
So it's so funny because like with shortboarding, I just gravitated towards it immediately.
Interesting.
So it was snowboarding on water for me.
Yeah.
Whereas like a longboard, completely different art.
Totally different.
You see the line differently.
Yep.
You generate speed differently.
Yep.
And I was shit. I couldn't do it. I was like, either I've got the weakest back foot and I feel like I've got decently strong legs. Like I couldn't turn the damn thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, granted, I bought like a log as well. It
Right.
was not
You bought some like
turnable longboard.
Yeah.
So the reason I bring up surfing in a very roundabout way was like, how much did surfing play a part in the move?
Huge.
Really?
Huge.
Okay.
It was we would go out to Montauk,
Sure.
New York for the summer. You came out to did you?
No,
come
I
to
never
those?
did.
No?
And
Okay.
in fact, okay, so for those listening, I met Timmy through our mutual friend Lindsay, who's from Ireland, and I was working at James Purse in Brentwood,
Right.
and
Okay.
Lindsay came in,
Yep.
and you know me, I'll talk to a tree.
I saw you out here doing that this morning.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, it was, yeah. No alcohol. By the way. And so I met Lindsay, and then obviously you and I met through Lindsay, and that was 11 years ago, something like that.
Damn,
something
time
like.
flies. I don't even.
But so yeah, and then we've surfed in San Diego together. We've surfed in Malibu together. So that played a part in moving to LA.
Yeah, I mean it was. So New York, we got to Montauk, and we had a house out there with Lindsay and this guy Mike Bonos and a bunch of other people. We're all still friends with, and it's funny because we just watched a film the other day by the filmmaker Jason Baffa.
Oh, I don't know.
He did Single Fin Yellow, and
okay.
and he also did a film called One California Day.
So I thought that was a Malloy Brothers thing.
I think they were in it.
Okay.
Yeah, and Tyler Hitzikian and
Yeah.
I don't remember who else.
Cool.
And the Malloys, because they were up here in Santa Barbara, right?
Right.
One of the Malloys lives right down the street there, and it was some flat day, and we were in the house that we had in Montauk, and we put on One California Day, and we're all sitting around the living room. There's probably 10 or maybe 10 people in the living room, and the film got done, and I turned around to everybody and I said, "Why do we not live in California?"
No way. You encouraged all those people to move
We
here.
watched this movie, and I remember turning around, and I was like, why? Because we were trying to make this California lifestyle into, and I think Montauk is as close as you get in.
That's my impression, having never been there.
It's a magical little town. Don't tell anybody about it.
It's okay.
It's
Nobody
already
listens.
blown up. It's fine.
Nobody listens to this podcast. I'm just kidding.
And nearly everybody in that room now lives in California.
That's incredible. Okay, so you moved to LA.
Yeah.
Is that when you strike out on your own, or were you doing?
Oh no! I assisted that year in New York. I worked for Elon, and I got really impatient. Probably my worst. I have something called Tim time, where it just needs to happen now.
Right.
And so I got a studio. This is flashing back to New York. I got a studio in New York. I shared a studio on 29th Street between 6th and 7th Avenue. It's like about 500 square foot studio. And when we had to shoot, when we shot like fashion or beauty, we had to like move furniture out into the hallway. It's hilarious, and paid for it on the credit card, kind of thing, and was assisting during the day and then shooting at night. And I remember the last week I was assisting, I was working for Elon during the day. I don't remember what we were shooting. It was almost there. And then I would go to my studio at night, and we were shooting camcorders for Sony at night. And I think that week, I think I worked about 100 hours. And I would go to Elon's the next morning after sleeping like, I don't know, maybe a couple hours on the couch. And we would shoot, when we would shoot all that 4x5 film, you would fire the strobes multiple times to build up the exposure to the proper thing. And sometimes you would be popping the strobes 20 times, and I was standing up and I would be falling asleep while I was popping the strobes, and I would fucking wake up and be like, oh shit.
Which is ironic because they're bright ass lights.
The bright ass lights had no
flickering
bright
in your
huge,
face.
like boom, the whole studio would like explode just like the levels just did when I did the boom there. And I'd be like, oh shit, I have no idea. And I have to start over because I had was that 20? Was that 17? I have no idea because I fell asleep standing up doing it. And that was my last week assisting.
So how did Elon take it when you told him you're leaving?
I think he was okay with it because he had offered me a full-time job and knew that I wasn't into a full-time job, and then rescinded the job offer. So I think it was okay. I remember taking a walk with him on the streets. He's like, yeah, I've been rethinking that. And I was like, okay, good. Because I wasn't going to accept it anyways. No, that was kind of a pivotal moment though. That was like, okay, here we go. Like I'm turning down full-time work with a good photographer to kind of like go out and do my thing.
Sure. So then what does get you to start your own deal? Like, when did you strike out on your own?
So at that point, I kind of didn't have a choice in the matter. So we were doing that thing for Sony with this art director, Brandon. I was like, okay, here we go, basically. And I got a contract gig with Ernst & Young, the consulting firm. And we had like a monthly contract with them, and I would do all because they were building up a stock library. So like, it wasn't beautiful work. It was all like, globes and magnet. It was like contract stock photography for their usage. And, yeah, that was like kind of like being pretty young and out of just on your own. And like, oh my God, we landed like a 6-figure contract. It was really nice, and got into some beauty work and still doing still life, and just kind of like, you're just hustling.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel like that's sort of the life of a photographer, right? Like, just kind of hustle, and you're reaching out to companies mostly, and like, had you gotten to that place where companies were finding you and reaching out to you?
I'm trying to think what the environment was at that point. I got an agent early on, James Hill, who I actually met at Elon Rubin's place. He was working at Art Department, which is a really well-known agency back in the time, who was representing Elon, and met James there, ran into him on the street. He became my first agent. He is actually newly my agent again, which is really cool. So I just signed with his new company, 6+1, which is pretty cool. We've obviously kept in touch. He's like an absolute brother, which is really cool. So, so I signed with him early on, and then he worked at, and I got absorbed kind of like into an agency called Vernon Jolly Inc. back in the day, and they had Herb Ritz, which is really cool. Vernon was an incredible guy, Australian guy, super well respected, just gem of a person. At his agency, and that was a cool place to be.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So then, so when you were living, so when we met,
yep,
I know that you drove a Volkswagen.
I did.
Like a Vanagon.
I had that 88 Westphalia. Yeah.
Do you still have that?
No, I sold that.
When did you sell that? When you got
a year and a half ago?
Oh no, more recent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I had it here. Missed that damn thing, man. Talk about cars. You like, I did the upgrade path, and I bought the Sprinter there, which is kind of like,
I see
what you do. But man, that van, I missed that damn thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you mentioned earlier you went to woodworking school in Maine.
Yeah.
What prompted that? Was it just kind of like I need a new hobby, or was it like a
I've always loved building stuff. I've always loved figuring things out. I remember, building a skateboard ramp in my backyard when I was in middle school, whatever. Like, just it was like hands-on building stuff and I've always wanted to do it. And I was like, no, I'm taking a summer off. I had done 1 month off for a retreat back in 2011. And then the summer that I went to Maine was like the first time I had taken off, for a long period, like, got out of college, started working, did all the things. So it was the first time I no, I'm just going to go do this because I want to go do this. It was fantastic.
Sweet. So
Yeah.
what was implied there? Like, how long is that program?
So it was a 3-month program.
Wow.
The school was called the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship.
What did that cost?
It's about $8,000,
Okay.
I think.
For 3 months.
Yeah, for 3 months.
Now, is that room and board and food and everything?
No, that's just the instruction. You had to go get an apartment in town. So I got this really great, like, above garage apartment on this pond with a dock and the Adirondack chairs out at the end. It's like out of a picture. And that whole section of Maine is like out of a picture.
Yeah.
It's just like, you think Maine, you're like lobster. Yep, there's that. And I love that. There's probably the only place, not probably, I won't even hedge that bet. That Camden, Rockport area in Maine is the only other place I would live in the United States.
Yeah, I have a very dear friend of mine who just moved back to Maine. She's from there originally, and she was in New York City, and she just moved back, and she
Who's that?
just absolutely love it. My friend Jessica, she's
Huh.
basically like my sister.
Yep.
She hired me at James Purse,
No kidding.
so that's why I say she's like my sister.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I've known her since I started there in 2009, and so it's been 12 years, and I talked to her today.
And what part of Maine do you remember?
I don't remember where she's from originally, but I think it's right outside of, because Freeport's where LL Bean's from.
Correct.
But
Yeah, a
I
little
think
bit more
she's
South
from
Coast.
Portland.
Okay.
I think she's from Portland.
Yep.
And then her folks are like 20 minutes away from the water.
Oh, yeah.
But she's
Yeah.
like 2 blocks from the marina
Ah.
in Portland.
Maine is something else. Portland's
Yeah.
a great city. Yep.
Yeah. I've never been to Maine.
It is.
And I really want to go during the summer. I hear it's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah. But the winters, it's like Chicago.
Also insane.
Right. Well, true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go to woodworking school.
Yeah.
3 months. So was it more just a creative outlet for you, or was it actually like a business thing, or like?
No, it was. I still think when I retire, I'll probably just build furniture. I mean, I've always wanted to. I've been working on lighting designs, and I've always wanted to design furniture. I love making something tangible. The woodworking school and the furniture building school was a way of like learning how to do it for real. Like, I wanted to, a lot of photography, I went to college for it, but it's a lot of like learning it on your own.
Right.
And I was like trying to learn some stuff on my own, like YouTube videos and stuff like that. And I was like, what? No, I need somebody to like teach me how to do a dovetail.
Right. I was
Show me
going
the
to say.
right way to do it. Show me the right way to use a table saw and all
Where
those
did
things.
Where did you think you were missing the details on your own? Like, what did they teach you where it was like, oh, that's how you do it?
They had great instructors. Aaron Fedarko, I think I just messed up his last name. Sorry, Aaron. Was our main instructor, and they had a bunch of other guys who came in and taught certain segments of it. But you're learning from experts.
Right.
And I think the woodworking community has such a great culture of teaching. I generally dislike social media.
Right.
However, the woodworking community on Instagram is one of the most generous sharing. It's incredible. Like, people are not like, oh, like, don't. I'm not going to give away
they're
my
not hiding.
secrets. They're
Yeah.
like, here's this crazy thing I just figured out how to do. Everyone else go for it and use it. It's a really generous community, and I think it's one of the best things on Instagram.
I have a friend, Kyle Sabre.
Mm-hmm.
He's based in Carlsbad,
Okay.
actually. His stuff is unreal. Like, I've been trying to get him on the podcast for well over a year.
Kyle, you should do it.
So I need to, just keep hitting him over the head with the microphone, I guess. But
Yep.
I'll connect you guys. He's incredible.
I'd love that. I don't spend enough time doing it. That was one of my favorite things about quarantine.
Right.
I built the first piece of furniture. I did a coffee table that's in the main house there. First piece of furniture I built since going to wood school.
Wow.
You know, it was like, oh my God, suddenly I have the time to do what I want.
Right.
I had all this stuff in the barn. I had just gotten the storage containers, and there's probably too much information, but I moved all of my woodworking stuff was in where the photo studio is now. Moved all that stuff into the main barn, and then set up, painted the photo studio room and got that all going, and knocked out my first piece of furniture in ages.
That's great, man. So you mentioned Callaway.
Yeah.
How do you categorize your style of photography?
Oh, wow.
Or can you? Because I would still say that you capture things in that sort of still life way. Like you did the Finn project, which I actually posted on my stories yesterday, 2 days ago.
I saw that.
I actually bought a print of yours years ago where you... Well, why don't you tell the story of the Finn project? How'd that come about and how did you shoot it?
So that was my agent at the time was basically like, you need a project to sink your teeth into. And I was like, okay, probably good point. I work better when given an assignment as opposed to, I'm just going to go do this for fun, which is
interesting.
It goes into, there's a problem to solve.
Right.
If somebody gives a problem to solve, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll totally do that. But I'm not, whatever. So, I had started years ago when I was in New York. I had wanted to do a line of T-shirts, which I never did, and somehow it landed on Fins. I don't have those designs anymore. I have no idea why. And then, so that I remembered that I had wanted to do that, and being a surfer and being new in California, I wasn't connected with the surf community at all, and I was like, oh, here we go. I can kind of take that little thing here, take that, and like kind of put everything together. And I reached out to Larry Allison at Fiberglass Fin Company and went down to his space and borrowed a bunch of fins from him and just literally dug through boxes of dusty fins up in his warehouse and borrowed those and, did the first round of images. And I think we ended up shooting, I don't know, maybe 100 and 150 different fins and boards and stuff from the surfing by San Onofre. San Clemente. Jesus. Yes. So in San Clemente, surfing cultural heritage, whatever. I don't know why I can't even pronounce that right now, but shot a bunch of boards there. And still have those prints online, and it was a really, really fun project. I started to do a documentary film about the Campbell brothers who created the Bonzer here in Oxnard. We never got funding for it, and I just kind of like mothballed that. So all that footage is still on hard drives up in my office. And
how did you shoot the fins and the boards? Was it Lightbox style or was it?
No, that was real. That was straight up from all my still life days. We had a white background, and then the fin was actually floated on plexiglass. When I shot individual fins, we were shooting them from overhead, and they were resting on clear plexiglass. So
the light source was below and above?
Yes, correct. So that way you can light the bottom independently from the top. So they're separated. So
was the light directly below it, or was it at an angle?
The light was basically we put a white piece of foam core or plexiglass on the ground, and we would light that with one light, and then we would light
To
the
soften
fin
it.
with other lights.
Right.
And so that way you're able to, even on the fin itself, you get light coming through the fin, but you're able to get shadows on the fin and really sculpt. I mean, you're using light as a sculpting tool.
Right.
Really. Whereas if you were to turn the lights on the fin off, you actually have a silhouetted fin. It's black. It's because there's a separation there. Just photo technique. So taking all those, like, that's how we used to shoot cosmetics and all this other stuff, and you're just using that to shoot fins now. So you're able to get really three-dimensional representations of the fins, which was super cool.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And with that collection, the print I got was, I don't even remember the name of the fins. It was like that kind of morphed looking fins, but there was 3 of them, and there was like I think a teal one, a magenta one, and a yellow one.
The Doug Mann football fins.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The football fins.
Yeah.
And those you kind of overlapped,
Yeah.
almost like primary colors, if you will.
Exactly. It was the merging of those colors. That was one of the original the T-shirt designs that I did back in the day. It was the merging of those colors.
It was
those
incredible.
were all line drawings, but this is, you know, the most fins are translucent, so when you light them with light behind it, ta-da, they do the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super cool. So fast forward to today.
Yeah.
What are you into now, and what are you shooting with? So weren't you a Hasselblad?
Yeah, I was a Hasselblad ambassador for years, which was cool. That was the first digital camera I bought. Actually before that it was an Imicon, and then Hasselblad bought Imicon. But I'm now I was used their cameras for years, and now I'm shooting with the Fuji GFX series, which is
A monster.
it's insanely good.
So what are the specs on that camera, so people know?
It's 100 megapixels. It's a medium format camera. So the chip is 3 or 4 times larger than a 35 millimeter.
It must get hot.
Gets heavy, but it's amazing. Like, it's worth it's incredible. The files are beautiful. The stuff you're able to do with them is incredible.
Now, is that an ambassadorship as well?
No, I bought that. It's the GFX 100. It's been out for a while. I bought it, and of course, 2 or 3 months later, they came out with a new version, which is lighter and a little bit faster, and like $3,000 cheaper.
So what are the lens capabilities for that?
It's a little bit more limited than you get on 35 millimeter based on the size. They're generally heavier, slower. I'm working with 3 lenses right now. I have a 50, which I love. It's a small little pancake lens. That's great. It's a focal length about a 35 millimeter.
So what kind of aperture are you talking about?
That one's a slower one. I've got a zoom of 45 to 100 zoom, and I have a 110 f2, which is a portrait lens. That lens is beautiful.
Nice.
And then I think on the shopping list they have a 23 millimeter, I think.
Oh wow, that's
which
wide.
is super wide.
Yeah.
On medium format. That's like an 18 or probably even less. And then they also have a 120 macro that I kind of get around by using extension tubes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a 250 super sharp.
Amazing.
So yeah, love that camera.
So when you're not shooting commercially, are you doing anything for fun? Do you have any other projects, kind of like the Finn project?
Don't have anything at this time frame. What I do like about the new old with working with James again is the agency 6+1 is doing a really cool thing where every month they give us an assignment. So I don't remember what this month's assignment is. I haven't done it yet, obviously. But they give us an assignment to do around a theme or something like that, which they'll then use for promotion and all that kind of stuff. But it's actually, I love the idea because, again, going back, like, I love solving problems.
Right.
And so just go be creative is not a problem to solve. Right? It's like, here's a concept, go shoot this. Great, I can do something with that. And so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it's kind of like how long is a piece of string?
Totally.
Well, you personally collect art. I don't know if you would characterize yourself as an art collector, but you definitely have some like really cool pieces.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific approach on how you collect other people's art? Is it more friend based? Is it community based?
Yeah, I think it's kind of friend based. I've got a few. I actually don't collect much photography. I've got three paintings, and then two other pieces, in the house. I've got one painting by my friend Jack LaRue, that I got from him when I was in New York. We did a show at my space. I got a piece from him on that. Still one of my favorites. I got a piece from a friend, Heather Chantos, who's a fantastic painter. She's now in France. And then Wyatt Mills, that guy, I bought that one from the show that we did
Sweet.
at the space. So it's great. And then I've got a little Kandinsky line drawing that I got from a gallery in New York in trade, and then called Our 20th Century. And then I have a Wendell Castle cloud shelf. Wendell Castle was actually a really influential figure in the furniture industry back in the 70s. He just passed a few years ago, but he did a series of pieces of furniture in fiberglass called the Cloud Series.
Okay.
And I did the photography for those things for the gallery, and I got paid in trade.
No
and
kidding.
So I got one of the pieces.
Sweet.
So that was pretty cool. Talk about something you never would have bought yourself, but
Right.
yeah.
So, I mean, obviously we brought up surfing a couple times. What was your first board?
First board was I think it's a 68 Bing Australian foil, which is still in the living room. And I bought it from a friend's dad, my friend Sonia Fisher, back in Ellington. I bought it from her dad for $100.
Is that a single
high
fin?
school. It's a single fin.
Yeah.
Kind of round hull bottom, kind of flat tail, thick as hell. And it's our first board. I'm so stoked I still have it. I think I got the birth certificate from Bing, who always kept records of all his boards.
I didn't know that.
So you can go back with any Bing board.
There's like an archive.
Give him the serial number, and he'll tell you where it came from. And it was bought from a surf shop in Hartford, Connecticut.
That's incredible. That's in the watch community, like having records and archives and stuff is like insane. What are you surfing mostly these days?
I am surfing. I have a couple boards that I love.
You got a new one recently.
I got a couple new ones. Well, yeah, I got I have 4 that are in my like, oh my God list. I have a Beat to Hell Putnam Hilbers SOS, which stands for Son of Sam, which is kind of like the Magic Sam board that Nat Young rode in 68 or 69.
What are kind of the dims on that?
It's a 9.4. It's basically a long displacement hull, really thin and foiled out. That board is insane.
Fast.
It is so fast on the line. It takes this high line on the wave that I brought it to the Maldives on a trip that I did, and the people on the trip were like, I've never seen a longboard do that. It's just I love that board. It's incredible. I've got that one. I had a recent session on I've got a William Dennis, who's a local guy here. It's an 11-1 glider.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that's Skip Fry territory.
It's little day down at C Street, high tide, sitting 50 feet outside everybody.
Yeah, ankle peelers.
Getting every way if you want.
Getting everything early.
So much fun. And then I've got a 910 made by a guy, Zeph Carrig. The board name is a YYZ. It's a modern kind of like nose rider, big long concave board, paddles like a dream.
YYZ, is that the airport code for
I don't
Vancouver? I don't know. It sounds like an airport code.
It does sound like an airport code. That board's amazing. Paddles, incredible. And then I just bought a CJ Nelson Outlier, which is like a mid-length 7.6.
That's the one I
hull, like a hull bottom. That thing goes so good. really fast. I think I have a thing for displacement holes.
Why
in general.
VR, now that I think about it? That's the Vancouver.
YVR, okay.
Yeah, not
Yep.
YYZ.
Nope.
It's YVR.
No, but sounds similar. I wonder where he got that name, actually.
That's funny.
Yeah. So those are my kind of like 4 go-tos.
That's the current quiver?
That's the current quiver. There's a few other ones that are kind of sitting in the container there.
I was up to like 7 or 8 boards at one point.
Yep.
And I have pared back to basically 3.
Okay.
And
what are you riding now?
Well, I've got a 5.8 fish that's like the standard H board. It's a
cool.
twin
It's like
keel.
half a surfboard.
Yeah. It's like a twin keel wooden glass on.
Cool.
Yeah, that's great. I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
Then I have a 5.9 Jeff McCallum.
I remember that one. Is
It's
that the black one?
Yeah.
That's just like the YYZ's black as hell, melts wax like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, well, I had Jeff redo it because I surfed the shit out of the other one. Like I had pressure dings. I had like a knee put through it, basically.
Oh God, my boards are trashed.
Thing, and I still have the original.
Yeah. Okay.
Which incidentally was Jeff's personal board.
I remember that board.
I had bought his personal board, having been ridden, and it was magic. It was absolutely magic. And I was just like, Jeff, I understand that this one's magic. I can't expect you to reshape the same magic.
But if you could.
But I want the same shape and dimensions and et cetera. And then I have a 7.2 single fin.
Cool.
By none other than AJW Surfboards, which is Adam Warden. I went to college with his sister. And AJW shapes for Cam Richards, who's been on tour, free surfer. I don't even know his status now. But he is... I don't know that Adam's ever shaped like a fun board or mid-length or...
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it is literally a Swiss Army knife. It's super thin.
Ooh.
Super flat.
Uh-huh.
It's 7'2", and I just throw the fin all the way up in the box.
Yep. Keep it loose.
It turns on a dime.
Yep.
It's incredible. Well, after all that, what was your first car?
A shit box. No, it really wasn't a shit box.
It should have been.
It should have been. And
As a parent,
we'll get into the
which
philosophy.
neither of us are.
Yeah, we'll get into the philosophy of shit boxes. It was a 1982 poo brown with a little bit of red and a little bit of rust Toyota Cressida. You know, good old hand-me-down car, as I think, philosophically speaking, that all first cars should be. And got that, I think, in college. I didn't have a car in high school.
Oh, no kidding.
No, this was college.
So you were riding the bus to high school?
Oh yeah, or friends or whatever.
Yeah.
The hand me down, and it had a complete knack for losing the muffler every year. As I drove home from college with the car packed full of shit, halfway home from Syracuse to Connecticut, and the muffler would fall off because it had rusted through in 12 months.
Got it.
Yep.
So that was it was a rust problem.
It was a rust problem.
Not it's loaded so heavily that it would drag on the ground and break off.
Probably a bit of both, but more so the rust problem, I think.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There's like something very, I don't even know what movie it was, like the Beverly Hillbillies or something.
No, it really was. I remember driving to school with it one year with from Connecticut with a dresser on the top, straight up Beverly Hillbillies. Dresser on the top.
Incredible.
I don't think that thing would go 50 miles an hour with that thing up on it.
That's amazing.
It was not aerodynamic nor powerful at the time.
Right.
Yeah, that was the first car.
Amazing. So what are you driving now?
I have, well, my wife Danielle has a Subaru Crosstrek.
Great car.
Which we love.
Yeah, great
absolutely
car.
love that thing. And then I had the 88 Westfalia van, which the Volkswagen, which I sold.
Single tier,
slow motion tier going down the left. Yeah, that was a drag.
So tell me, why did you sell that? It was an upgrade, you said?
It was God, with heavy heart, right?
Did you make money on it?
Yes, I bought it for $13,000. and I sold it for 26. So
There
I
you
doubled
go.
my money
You
on it.
doubled your money.
I doubled my money on it.
So I've told people this story before, and I've
Yep.
probably mentioned it on this podcast. My logo came from a Google search of looking at Volkswagens for the Vanagon.
Yeah.
So in order to build out the interior like a store, so I could go to surf spots like Swami's, for example,
Yep.
with its own parking lot,
Yep.
surf in sling T-shirts in the parking lot.
I love it.
Well, back in 2016 or whatever, your $26,000 is actually a pretty decent deal now, but some of these things in great condition were $30,000 and $40,000.
Oh, it's crazy what
and
they
I
were
couldn't
getting.
afford that on top of
Yep.
my then car payment.
Yep. It all sounds like a good idea. No, I love that van. I actually bought that. That was my second Westie. I had actually, at the time I bought that, I bought a 1982 air-cooled in white.
I love the white ones, man.
The white ones are good.
I love a white Synchro, the all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive.
Don't I wish? There's one here in town that I love.
Those things are commanding crazy prices.
Oh, it's insane. It's insane. So I had the 82, and then as you do, you just stay on Craigslist and eBay like a fiend.
Right.
And this thing popped up it was down in Westchester in LA, and it had a buy it now price. And I was
eBay.
on eBay.
eBay Motors.
And I had and I bought it on my lunch break.
Amazing.
I was like, holy
Sight
shit.
unseen.
Sight unseen. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And I knew it was in Westchester.
Do you get like the eBay protection thing? Like if
Yeah,
the deal
there's
goes
some
sour?
protection there. So if it's a complete dog, I knew I had some protection. So I was just like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And I was down in Venice. I had a studio down there at the time. I was like, boonk. I was like, holy shit. I did it. And I got it. And it was in low mileage. It had 88,000 miles. I knew I couldn't go wrong, because it didn't have enough miles for it to be totally screwed up.
Right. And was it a California car?
California
so to speak?
car. The
Right.
guy had done a bunch of work on it. He had done some suspension work on it. Like it was in good shape. And then
What was that color called? It was like an ice blue or like silvery blue.
yeah, and it was weird because
It's not delivery. It's
it's
DiGiorno.
it's not delivery. It's dad.
He's going to get that
He's
pizza
going
now.
to get that pizza. I still feel every time I say the word dad, I feel like I'm 12.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, I really obviously he's still my dad, right? Obviously I'm 5 years old, but every time I say the word my dad is here, I feel like I'm like 13 again.
Right. Like you suddenly need to be on your best behavior.
Yes.
Right. Now, having met your dad and having met your mom, like your parents are awesome.
They're fucking amazing. You
And-
can leave that part in. I am so
Well, I'm totally leaving that in.
I am so lucky.
And what's funny is I just realized I never even asked you like what they did for work. And normally every podcast I ask everybody what their parents did for work.
Ah, interesting.
But your dad was like in environmental protection, but for the government?
Yeah, he worked for the state of Connecticut for I don't know how many years. He worked in wastewater. So it doesn't really sound all that interesting. He worked
Right.
for the DEP.
Right.
Yeah.
But your mom, however,
Yep.
she was a home ec teacher.
Home ec teacher.
teacher.
Yep.
I asked her yesterday or 3 days ago, whenever.
Yeah.
What day is it? I asked your mom several days ago when I met her. Is that like even still a profession? Like, do those teachers still exist?
I actually have zero idea. What was her answer? Did she say?
She's like, yeah. I was like, I don't know. Like, is it a East Coast thing? Like, kids in San Diego are not going to home ec. class.
They're not learning how to
Yeah, they're
bake pies and stuff. I
They're
don't
getting
remember
handed-
home ec teachers.
They're getting handed rodeo flips in the form of
here's
cameras.
here's your BMW.
Yeah. I like. Anyway,
I love how we just brought that around. Yeah,
it's
that was
just
good.
so crazy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but your parents are the best.
I mean, I am a lucky human being. one of the things that I give my parents the absolute most credit for is wherever I was in life, there was never any pressure when I wanted to get into photography, when I wanted to go to Syracuse, when I wanted to move to New York, like any of those life decisions, there was never
They were just super supportive.
They were like, okay, here we go.
I will agree with you, or at least identify with you on that front every step of the way, except for my move to California. And
where you had the job in California?
What's that?
Where you had the fake job in California?
Yeah, where I lied to them and told them I had a job in LA.
Details. You eventually found one.
Well, yeah. And quickly, mind you.
Well, there you go.
I think
That's
it was
good
within
enough.
72 hours. In
Ow!
fact.
That's as good as having a job.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, super supportive.
Right? Like that is...
And it wasn't like a monetary, like, golden parachute type of support. It was just an emotional support.
Right, like, okay. Like, you want to do... Okay.
Right.
You know, like, and that's...
It was that belief, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like I was...
Very lucky, because not everybody has that.
No. And you know, Danielle, my wife, has had a different upbringing than me. And she's given me great perspective on how lucky I am to have my parents, to have them healthy, to have them, you know, visit me for a month here in California. And that's...
Right, because they're still in Connecticut.
Yeah, they're still in Connecticut. You know, they're still, still fit. My mom would go to CrossFit every day if she could. She's I've watched her deadlift 200+ pounds. Yeah.
Are you kidding?
No, not at all.
You've seen your mother deadlift over 200 pounds.
Yes. My mom.
That's not normal.
My mom does Murph every year. My mom does compete at CrossFit games. Not like you know how they do the CrossFit Open. Sorry.
You're already speaking in a foreign tongue. But I do know what a deadlift is.
Right?
That's insane, man.
Yep. She's no joke.
That's incredible. Well, Tim, look, man, I can't thank you enough for having me up here.
I love that you're able to come up and
this
hang.
has been insane. I mean, the weather's been insane. The views have been insane. The sunsets have been insane. The birds chirping, and now sounds like crickets.
The crickets, yeah. Crickets and cars. Shut up, cars.
Yeah. And the beer is insane. The coffee's been insane. Look, I'm not trying to blow up Ojai, but I'm just saying I've had a wonderful time. I really appreciate you having me. Is there anything you want to promote? Where can people find your work? Tell, what's going on.
Yeah, so Instagram is at Timothy Hogan. I think Twitter's the same, but I don't do anything with Twitter, so I'm just going to whatever. You can do whatever you want there, but I'm not going to check it. Work is at timothy-hogan.com. My prints are at Timothy Hogan Studio. I'm still trying to figure out how to merge those two together, but that's a whole nother branding exercise.
Yeah.
And then my company Conveyor, which does e-commerce and content photography, is Conveyor, CONVYR.com.
CONVYR. That's right. Yeah. Cool. Awesome, man.
Thank you for having
blast.
me.
Yeah, super fun.
For my first podcast, you made this painless and enjoyable. Great conversationalist, and it's been really fun sitting here on the porch, drinking some beers and having a conversation.
And editing out car noises.
Whoop, pause. Just kidding. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Hopefully the surf will come up and we can jump in the water sometime soon. And of course, you're always welcome to come down to San Diego.
Let's do it. Thank you for your time, man.
Thanks. As always, major thanks goes to Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful for the theme track, as well as the clear audio for the noise cancellation headphones. And thanks to all of you for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show. And while you're there, if you don't mind rating and even leaving a short review, it helps way more than you think. Please give Standard H a follow on Instagram at standardh_, as well as the podcast page at standardh_podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Standard H podcast in 2 weeks' time. Thanks again for listening.